What if God asked you to do something impossible? Something that went against everything you believe in? That's exactly what happened to the prophet Hosea. God ordered him to marry an unfaithful woman, but why? What does this shocking story have to do with God's love for us? Get ready to discover one of the most impactful and moving messages in the Bible. A story of betrayal, pain, but above all, of a love that never gives up. The story of the prophet Hosea takes place during a turbulent period in Israel's history. After Solomon's reign, the kingdom split in two, Israel to the north and Judah to the south. This split ushered in an era of political, social, and spiritual challenges. The northern kingdom, where Hosea ministered, was made up of 10 tribes and had Samaria as its capital. Judah, to the south, was made up of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, with Jerusalem as its religious and political center. Although they shared a common origin, their paths quickly took different directions. Israel prospered economically thanks to its fertile lands and strategic location on trade routes. On the other hand, Judah, more isolated, remained more faithful to the religious traditions inherited from David and Solomon. But despite the material progress, the Israelite nation was plunged into a spiritual crisis. The reign of Jeroboam II brought a period of unprecedented growth and territorial expansion for Israel. As recorded in 2 Kings 14:23-25, he restored borders and consolidated his dominion. However, this prosperity favored only an elite, increasing social inequality and corruption. Hosea denounced this injustice in Hosea 12:7-28. The merchant uses deceptive scales and likes to exploit. Ephraim says, "I am very rich. I have acquired great possessions. In all my work you will find no sin in me." While the economy flourished, the people's faith weakened. The worship of Yahweh was being corrupted by the worship of Baal and other Canaanite gods. In Hosea 2:8, God laments, "She did not recognize that it was I who gave her wheat, wine, and oil, and who multiplied silver and gold, which they used for Baal." This mixture of beliefs, known as religious syncretism, was one of the central themes of Hosea's prophecies. His marriage to Gomer would serve as a powerful illustration of this spiritual infidelity. The death of Jeroboam II marked the beginning of political instability in Israel. A succession of weak rulers and conspiracies weakened the kingdom. In 2 Kings 15, we see how kings were assassinated in quick succession, reflecting the crisis denounced by Hosea. He describes this degradation in Hosea 7:3-7. "All your kings fall, and no one cries out to me." In this chaotic scenario, a new threat was approaching, the Assyrian Empire. Under the command of Tiglath-Pileser III, the Assyrians were expanding their rule through military conquests and mass deportations, destroying the national identity of the conquered peoples. Israel tried to seek support from them, but Hosea warned in Hosea 5:13. "When Ephraim saw his sickness and Judah his wounds, Ephraim turned to Assyria and sent for the great king. But he can neither cure them nor heal their wounds." The prophets were the moral conscience of the nation, confronting leaders and the people about their broken covenant with God. In Hosea 4:1-2 he proclaims, "The Lord has a charge against you, inhabitants of the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no knowledge of God in the land. There is only cursing, lying, murder, theft, and adultery. You have crossed every line." Hosea's mission was clear: to denounce corruption, call the people to repentance, and announce both judgment and the hope of restoration. Hosea's call was different from that of other prophets. While Isaiah had a glorious vision in the temple, Isaiah 6, and Jeremiah received his call at a young age, Jeremiah 1, Hosea received a shocking and unusual command. In Hosea 1:2, God said, "Go, marry an adulterous woman and bear children of infidelity, for this land has played the harlot by forsaking the Lord." This divine command generated theological debate. Was it a literal command or a metaphor? Regardless of the interpretation, the message was clear. Hosea's personal life would serve as a living portrait of the relationship between God and Israel. In the ancient world, marriage was often used as a symbol of political and spiritual alliances. Kings performed strategic marriages to seal pacts with other peoples. In the same way, Israel had spiritually married foreign gods, betraying its exclusive covenant with Yahweh. By accepting this mission, Hosea put himself in a vulnerable and humiliating position. His marriage to Gomer was a reflection of God's relationship with Israel, a covenant marked by the people's unfaithfulness and the Lord's unwavering faithfulness. The Bible doesn't record Hosea's initial reaction, but we can imagine the internal conflict he must have faced. However, his obedience was immediate. Hosea 1:3 reports, "He married Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she bore him a son." This marriage was a prophetic act, conveying a powerful message. Hosea's pain at facing his wife's unfaithfulness reflected God's grief at seeing his people going astray. Hosea and Gomer's sons were given symbolic names, each representing a prophetic message. The first son was called Jezreel, which means God sows. This name referred to the valley of Jezreel, a place of battles and divine judgments, signaling that Israel's reigning dynasty would face God's justice. The second daughter was named Lo Ruhamah, which means unloved or without compassion. This name indicated that God would temporarily withdraw his mercy from Israel, allowing them to reap the consequences of their rebellion. The third son was called Lo Ami, which means not my people. This name symbolized the breaking of the covenant between God and Israel due to the people's unfaithfulness. These names were shocking messages to the society of the time. Having a child called not beloved or not my people was a living testimony of divine judgment. However, even in the midst of these harsh statements, there was an implicit promise of restoration. In Hosea 1:10, God offers hope. In the place where it was said to them, "You are not my people," they will be called children of the living God. Hosea didn't just preach the word of the Lord, he lived this message in his own home, making his life a living sermon for the whole nation. In time, Gomer returned to his former life of promiscuity, abandoning Hosea and his children. The Bible doesn't detail the reasons for her betrayal, but we can imagine that just as Israel sought security in political alliances and foreign gods, Gomer may have been seduced by promises of material stability and passing pleasures. This betrayal was a painful blow for Hosea. His pain was a direct reflection of God's grief at seeing his people seeking other gods. Israel not only worshipped idols, but also made political agreements with pagan nations, relying more on these alliances than on divine protection. Despite Gomer's betrayal, God commanded Hosea to bring her back. In Hosea 3:1, the Lord instructs, "Go again, love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, even though they turn to other gods." This was an extraordinary call to forgiveness and redemption. Hosea had to seek out Gomer and rescue her, buying her back like a slave who had been sold. Hosea 3:2 reads, "So I bought her for 15 pieces of silver and a quantity of barley." The price paid for Gomer was the value of a common slave, a sign of how low she had fallen. This act represented the grace of God, who was willing to rescue Israel, even after her repeated unfaithfulness. After bringing her back home, Hosea imposed a period of purification. "You shall live with me many days. You shall not commit fornication or belong to another man, and I will do the same for you." Hosea 3:3. This symbolized a time of restoration for Israel. God would allow the nation to go through difficulties, but his goal was to bring them to repentance and a renewed relationship with him. Hosea's message was clear: God does not give up on his people, even when they turn away. His love is not based on merit, but on his grace and faithfulness. In Hosea 11:8-9, God expresses this deep compassion. How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I hand you over to others, Israel? My heart is moved within me. All my compassion is kindled. I will not execute my burning anger, for I am God and not man. This is one of the most moving moments in the book of Hosea. The Lord, though just, does not wish to destroy his people. Instead, he seeks to restore them through love and discipline. Hosea's message was not only about judgment, but also about the hope of redemption. God was calling Israel to repentance, not through empty sacrifices, but through a genuine transformation of heart. In Hosea 6:1-3, the prophet cries out, "Come, let us return to the Lord. He has broken us, but he will heal us. He has wounded us, but he will bind us up. After 2 days he will give us life. On the 3rd day he will restore us, so that we may live in his presence. Let us know the Lord. Let us strive to know him. As surely as the sun rises, he will appear. He will come to us like the rains of winter, like the spring rains that water the earth." This passage reflects God's desire to restore his people. Just as a betrayed husband longs for reconciliation with his wife, God longed for Israel's return. But for this restoration to take place, more was needed than superficial religious rituals. In Hosea 6:6, God declares, "For I desire mercy, not sacrifice, knowledge of God, rather than burnt offerings." This verse echoes throughout the Bible, being quoted by Jesus in Matthew 9:13 and Matthew 12:7. A true relationship with God is not based on external ceremonies, but on love, justice, and sincere commitment. Hosea's prophecy also points to a future of restoration. In Hosea 14:4-7, God promises, "I will heal their unfaithfulness and love them with all my heart, for my anger has turned away from them. I will be like dew to Israel. It will blossom like the lily. It will take root like the cedars of Lebanon. Its branches will spread out. Its beauty will be like the olive tree, and its fragrance like the cedars of Lebanon." Even after all the suffering, God offers a new opportunity. He promises to heal and restore Israel, bringing peace and prosperity again. This message from Hosea transcends its time. It reminds us that no matter how far we have strayed, God is always ready to welcome us back. His love is greater than our failings, and his grace is sufficient to restore us. The story of the prophet Hosea is a living testimony to God's unconditional love. His marriage to Gomer was a powerful illustration of God's relationship with Israel, a relationship marked by betrayal, suffering, but also by grace and redemption. Hosea's message still resonates today, calling us to authentic faith and a true relationship with God. If this story touched you, share it with friends and family. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to follow more Bible studies and transformative reflections. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.